At 0841 hours local time, inside the Combat Information Center of a U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer operating in the South China Sea, multiple threat tracks appeared simultaneously across the primary tactical display. They weren't aircraft. They weren't surface contacts. They were missiles. 12 of them. Launched in rapid sequence from a Chinese surface combatant beyond the horizon, their trajectories spiked upward before flattening aggressively. Designed to accelerate fast, then disappear into the sea clutter where reaction time collapses. This wasn't a probe. This wasn't signaling. This was a full anti-ship salvo. The watch floor went silent as automated systems began classifying the threat. Speed profiles matched supersonic cruise missiles, sea-skimming altitude, terminal maneuvering as expected. Every indicator pointed to the saturation attack doctrine, overwhelmed defenses by forcing too many decisions too quickly. And then the target designation was finalized. It wasn't the destroyer. It was a US-flagged oil tanker transiting under escort, Liberty Sentinel, instantly shifting the situation from strategic tension to active combat engagement. Inside the CIC, the implications were clear. A logistics vessel under missile attack isn't just a ship in danger, it's a statement. It turns navigation into warfare. If you want clear, doctrine-based breakdowns of real naval incidents, what was detected, what was fired, and why decisions get made this fast, subscribe to Navy Recon. We follow the moments where seconds decide outcomes. Liberty Sentinel was carrying more than 550,000 barrels of crude oil, a floating logistics reserve bound for forward U.S. operations in the Western Pacific. The cargo alone represented over $42 billion in market value and operational significance. But more important than the number was what it represented. Fuel is freedom of movement. Fuel is air power. Fuel is deterrence made physical. Escorting the tanker was a single Aegis-equipped destroyer, USS Barry, tasked with defending that shipment through one of the most heavily monitored maritime corridors on Earth. This pairing was deliberate. One high-value asset, a one-layered missile defense platform. But even the most advanced naval defenses operate within limits, and those limits shrink rapidly when supersonic weapons enter the equation. Barry's combat systems refine the solution in real time. Missile type confirmed. Intercept geometry calculated. Engagement timelines compressed to seconds as the incoming tracks continued to close. There were no warning calls from the launching ship, no maritime challenge, no attempt at de-escalation. The engagement had begun with missile fire, and that mattered, because the South China Sea isn't defined by geography alone. It's defined by throughput. Nearly 1/3 of global maritime trade passes through these waters, including energy shipments critical to Allied sustainment. Any successful interdiction here doesn't remain local. It ripples outward into markets, alliances, and military readiness. As the missiles closed the distance, the operational picture collapsed into a narrow escalation window, measured not in minutes, but in seconds, where every defensive decision would determine what happened next across the entire region. At 0916, Barry's electronic warfare suite detected uplink signals consistent with terminal guidance updates. Seconds later, the missiles broke the horizon line. Flying low and fast, they were designed to compress reaction time and overwhelm defenses through sheer velocity. The sea itself appeared to recoil as the salvo closed in, leaving defenders with a rapidly collapsing decision window measured in seconds. Inside Barry's Combat Information Center, the situation shifted instantly to full engagement status. Standard missiles launched in rapid succession from the vertical launch system. Fire control radars tracked, updated, and reassigned targets in real time. Close-in weapon systems spun up as a final defensive layer. Every system functioned exactly as designed under saturation conditions, pushing the ship's defensive envelope to its engineered limits. The intercept window was brutal and unforgiving. One by one, incoming missiles were destroyed in mid-air, detonating far from their intended target. 10 threats neutralized. The defense held until saturation took its toll. 2 missiles penetrated the defensive envelope, confirming the inherent risk of massed supersonic attack, even against modern naval defenses. The first impact punched through Liberty Sentinel's outer hull plating. The second struck a fuel storage compartment with devastating precision. The explosion ignited vast quantities of crude oil almost instantly. A towering fireball rose into the sky, followed by thick black smoke visible for miles, marking the tanker's position across the battle space. The vessel was mortally damaged and no longer mission capable. Damage control teams aboard both vessels responded immediately. Lifeboats were lowered. Fire suppression systems were engaged despite extreme conditions. 3 American sailors were killed in the initial blast. 12 more suffered severe burns and trauma as burning fuel spread across the deck and into the surrounding water, turning rescue operations into a race against time. Overhead satellite systems captured the strike in real time. Thermal signatures confirmed uncontrolled fires. The visual was unmistakable. In Beijing, naval command centers acknowledged mission completion. State media channels prepared to amplify the narrative of American vulnerability, attempting to frame the strike as a strategic breakthrough. That narrative collapsed quickly. At 09:58 hours, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command formally classified the strike as an act of war. Retaliation authority was granted without delay. This was no longer a defensive escort operation. It was an active combat response, executed under standing maritime strike doctrine with no requirement for further political authorization. Electronic warfare assets were first to move. Two EA-18G Growlers launched at speed, configured for wide-area jamming and signal denial. At the same time, two B-2 Spirit stealth bombers were retasked mid-flight, their mission parameters rewritten in minutes. The target package was clear: Woody Island, China's most fortified forward outpost. Woody Island represented the centerpiece of China's forward military posture in the region: radar installations, surface-to-air missile batteries, a long runway supporting frontline fighter aircraft. Command bunkers hardened against conventional attack. It was designed to project power across the South China Sea. It would soon absorb the full consequences of escalation. At 10:40 hours, American strike assets were fully synchronized. Growlers entered the battlespace first, unleashing sustained electronic attacks across a broad spectrum. Chinese radar returns degraded rapidly. Communications links faltered. Air defense operators lost coherent tracking data almost immediately, leaving the island functionally blind. At 10:47 hours, the B-2S released their payload from high altitude. Massive bunker-penetrating munitions descended silently, striking with overwhelming force. Radar arrays vanished in seconds. Command facilities collapsed inward. Missile batteries were buried before they could respond, neutralized before a defensive shot could be fired. Moments later, USS Barry executed its own strike sequence. 10 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched in precise intervals. Skimming the sea at low altitude, they flew programmed routes refined through years of planning and rehearsal. Their targets were infrastructure, not symbolism, aimed at permanently erasing operational capability rather than signaling intent. The island's main runway was cratered repeatedly, rendering it unusable within seconds. Hangars erupted as secondary explosions tore through parked aircraft. Fuel storage facilities ignited, sending shockwaves across the base. Any chance of sortie generation ended instantly, trapping surviving aircraft and crews in place. Chinese air defenses attempted limited interception. 2 Tomahawks were destroyed. The remainder struck home. Naval piers collapsed into the harbor. Ammunition depots detonated with concussive force, amplifying the destruction far beyond initial impact zones and overwhelming emergency response efforts. In under 30 minutes, Woody Island ceased functioning as a military installation. Aircraft were destroyed on the ground. Command capability was eliminated. Personnel casualties mounted rapidly as fires spread through hardened structures. The outpost was neutralized completely. Removed from China's regional force projection in a single operation. By 11:05 hours, satellite imagery confirmed total mission success. Fires burnt uncontrollably across the island. No organized response remained. The balance of power in the immediate battle space had shifted decisively, restoring uncontested U.S. operational dominance in the sector. International reaction followed almost instantly. Markets paused. Allied command centers monitored live feeds. The material losses were severe. Aircraft destroyed. Naval assets crippled. A forward operating base erased in a single strike window. Years of construction and billions in investment were gone before midday, creating a visible and irreversible strategic setback. For the United States, the cost was also real. Liberty Sentinel burnt through the afternoon. Her cargo was lost. Her crew bore permanent scars, but the convoy survived, and the principle behind it endured. American logistics would not be intimidated into retreat. This was not escalation for its own sake. It was enforcement. A demonstration of consequence when freedom of navigation is attacked with lethal force, reinforcing deterrence through decisive, proportional, and overwhelming response. By nightfall, the South China Sea appeared calm once more, but the operational reality had changed. Deterrence had been restored not through statements, but through action measured in minutes and miles across sea, air, and command networks. The United States did not seek confrontation. But when its forces were attacked, the response was immediate, precise, and decisive, executed according to doctrine, capability, and command discipline. Shipping lanes remained open. The message was delivered without ambiguity, observed across the region, and understood by every naval command monitoring the aftermath. The mission continues. Navy Recon will be watching every movement, every deployment, and every shift in maritime balance. If you value clear military analysis and real operational insight, stay subscribed, stay informed, and remain ready for what comes next.